Thanks for checking out a message. Here at Centerpoint, our goal is to be positive, relevant, and real.
Welcome to Centerpoint Church. Hey, to get started, I just want to know, what do you really want in life? Anybody got something you want to yell out to me? What do you really want? Let me give you some promptings, because I knew this would probably be the case. No one wants to say anything in church. How about some money? I hear laughs, but no one's raising their hand yet, all right? What if I had a free $100? That would have been great. Who would say they want a vacation with some relaxation? Anybody? Okay, a few of you. Who would say they are, or who's maybe single right now and would love to mingle and maybe find a spouse? Take note of those people. No one right now? Okay, no one's willing. Who would say they want their spouse to maybe, freshen up a little bit, clean up a bit more for them? No one's affirming that. Who would say they just want more happiness? Happiness? Okay, a few of you, great. Now, here where all you are at, and I can relate to maybe some of those desires, but I want to tell you, I don't think you actually know what you really want. Now, you might be like, whoa, pastor's calling me out today. He thinks he knows me better than me. I'd be thinking the exact same thing if I were you right now, but when I tell you what I think you really want, I think you're going to agree with me. What you really want, or what I think you really want, is peace. You want peace in your finances. You want peace in your day-to-day. You want peace in your relationship status or marriage. You want peace in your mood. You want peace in your life. It's true, right? We want peace. You don't just want the cash that can get blown on dumb things or just disappear. You don't want the vacation that's full of stress or the little stress inducers, right? You don't want a marriage with a crabby person. You want peace in these things. And not just for yourself, but also for the world. Like, who here wouldn't mind for others to experience peace? Who wouldn't mind, like, world peace? Great, right? I'd love it. I'd hope for it. Now, you might be thinking, like, here goes Aaron.
World peace.
Sounding like a pageant contestant.
World peace.
World peace.
What is the one most important thing our society needs?
World peace, right? World peace. Growing up, the statement world peace was like the most cop-out answer you could possibly say when someone would say, like, what are you hoping for? What are you desiring? Because you just never thought it would come true. But it would be great. So as we sit here today, if it's truly the sum of like what we want, I want to ask the real and relevant question, is peace possible for you? Is peace in the world possible today? I get the realist view, like that says not a chance, life is just life, and the world is just full of unpeaceful people. I've thought this and I go through bouts of this. If that's you, I can relate. But I think in the Bible, it points to some ways how peace for you and the world has already been put into motion. The Bible points to how you can start experiencing more peace today. And the Bible also talks about how you can help others experience more peace today. Doesn't that sound amazing? Like, if that is a true statement truly being offered today, aren't you maybe a little more excited to learn today? It's just, do you believe it, actually, is what it comes down to. Have you experienced it, or are you willing to experience it? I want to help us get there today, but it's really interesting because this intro to today's message is the exact same intro I did to a message about 2 years ago. Anybody remember it? No one. Okay, I did it a few years ago when I spoke on peace. And being a church for about over 4 years now, I've done well over 200 sermons here at this church, plus another 300 sermons as a pastor somewhere else. So let's just say I've done 500 sermons. That's a lot of sermons that have probably talked about peace at some point. But the last message I did on peace, the big takeaways I sent people off on was, allow God's presence to create peace within you, actively pursue it, and then actively make it. And I still stand behind all of those things today. So I thought I'd just save us some time this morning and say, just go to YouTube, watch that message, head home early today, let's call it good, right? I'm only half joking, because I do think that message would be worth checking out at home. But we ain't wrapping up yet. We're not wrapping up yet. For the sake of today and for our series, Advent for Average Joes, what we're doing is we're discussing, what does it really mean for an average everyday person, someone like you and me, someone who gets anxious, stressed, emotional, someone who spends way too much money on Christmas or eats way too much on the holidays, someone who works a 9 to 5, drinks a little beer or wine, someone who is maybe close with their family, but not that close that you want to spend all week with them, just maybe a day or two, someone who likes watching football, someone who maybe decorates way too much for Christmas or gets sucked into Christmas rom-coms on Netflix, someone who likes their kids but also likes freedom and relaxation other than the few moments you get on the toilet. What does someone like that really do with these statements of peace? Like, allow God's presence, create peace within you, actively pursue it, and actively make it. Like, I mean, we, or at least me, are obviously doing maybe something wrong because I don't experience peace as much as I'd like, even knowing those three things. So what do we do? Like, how do we get just maybe a little more peace today? There's a time in Scripture where this angel appears to a girl, right? It says, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a city in Galilee. The angel went to a virgin promised in marriage to a descendant of David named Joseph. The virgin's name was Mary. When the angel entered her home, he greeted her and said, "You are favored by the Lord. The Lord is with you." Ooh, nice, right? You are favored, is what the angel says. Do you want that stated over you by like a messenger of God? It'd be amazing. I know I do. But then it continues. It says, she was startled by what the angel said and tried to figure out what this greeting meant. The angel told her, "Don't be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will become pregnant, give birth to a son." Now, if you know the story, Mary and Joseph definitely weren't trying, right? They weren't even doing the doing per se. So I don't know about you, but that does not sound like good news. That does not sound like giving of a favor per se, or great or peaceful. When Sydney, my wife, and I were trying to have our first child, Eliza, it was exciting because we were trying. And that's fun, right? Like, but I took pictures of myself every time she took a pregnancy test because I wanted to reflect on that moment with my kids. So it was like, this is like the one I found, and I'm kind of like, am I excited? I don't know, right? It's exciting. Like you're excited. You're waiting for this positive one, especially again when you're trying. But when we finally got a positive one, it was like, right? It's like, I am happy, but oh, wow, a baby doesn't typically bring peace. And you know this really well after you already have one. But if we were going to have a child out of our plans, I do not think what favor I have from God, especially if I'm Mary in this situation. Like someone who has not even done the doing, someone who is young, someone who is not married yet, someone who is somehow has to convince her future husband she really hasn't been cheating because he knows what they have and haven't done, someone who could even be punished for something like this. But this is what the angel says next to her. She says, "The baby, you will name him Jesus. He will be a great man and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord will give him the throne of his ancestor David. Your son will be king of Jacob's people forever, and his kingdom will never end." Mary asked the angel, "How can this be? I'm a virgin." The angel answered her, "The Holy Spirit will come to you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore, the Holy Child developing inside you will be called the Son of God. For nothing will be impossible for God." Mary answered, "I am the Lord's servant. Let everything you've said happen to me." Then the angel leaves. Can you imagine this? Like in my mind, what this looks like is hey, you're pregnant. Boom, right? That is a bomb you drop on someone. Like, you're pregnant. You're going to be a father. See ya, right? You're going to be a mom. I'm out. That's what happens basically with this angel. It's a bomb, and it brings anything but the statement, at least I would think, for a response of, "I am the Lord's servant. Let everything you've said happen to me." Like, I have to picture, she'd be like, "I am the Lord's servant. Let that maybe happen to me, maybe not," right? But this statement, at least how I read it in the context of Scripture, seems to be one that is confident from Mary. It's full of hope, it's full of joy and love and peace. Mary is this person who models hope, joy, love, and peace, which are all the themes of Advent. This Sunday is week 2 of Advent. It's of the traditional Christian church calendar. Some of you might be like, so what? I'm not a pastor. Like, why does that calendar matter to me? But what we're doing this month at church here is for the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, we're covering the real meaning and the purpose of Advent. Unlike maybe some of your experiences growing up with Advent, if you even had any, of maybe not totally getting it or understanding it or it being kind of boring or a snooze fest or just a word you say and pretend to be or leave with like some sort of action to do it, we hope to make it real and relevant for you today, to help you grow in your relationship with God this Christmas and to start actually experiencing more of these themes in your life. And I think we all would want that. So to start though, like some of you might be wondering, what is Advent? Like what does that even mean? Don't worry, that was me too. But Advent means the arrival or the coming of something. It's deemed a church tradition that forces Christians to slow down and think about Jesus' first arrival here on earth and all the things the people of his time were feeling while waiting for what the Old Testament of the Bible or prophets promised God would one day do, which was to send some kind of Messiah or person to make things right for them, to help their hardships, their suffering, their difficulties of life. And Advent for people in the Old Testament times was waiting for that. They're waiting for this thing to come, this person to come. And we see and know now it was waiting for Jesus to arrive and bring hope, joy, peace, and love. And the waiting for Jesus provided that. And we see Mary, like, she's kind of well aware of like that to come because her response to the angel is, I'll be the servant. Yeah, let me do it. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you can be like her and have some of what she's offering or has. But I don't know if you noticed, we're actually 2,000 years past Jesus' birth. And there still seems to be a void of some of these themes in our lives, in which Advent, or waiting for an arrival, is a time we are in the midst of as well right now. Because Advent for us today is a time where we can look forward to a promise of Jesus' second coming to earth, a time for a future where we will one day be with God, because Jesus has promised to come back and make things right forever for all mankind. You can get glimpses of this in the Bible over, especially in Revelation. It says, he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. That's a future peace coming for us. It's a future thing that we today can have hope and love and joy in. So practicing Advent today makes us sit between the two of these. The past, waiting for Jesus' first arrival, feeling the feelings they did, but then the future, the longing for Jesus' future arrival, where one day the world will live in complete harmony as God intended. The 4 themes of Advent are hope, love, peace, joy, and love. This week's theme again is peace. So we're going to discuss like how we can have peace like Mary did, but then even how it should be enhanced or almost greater for us today as we have the full arrival of Jesus already and now have even more peace to look forward to in the future than she did. So we're going to study the word peace for a little bit here. The word peace in Hebrew, which is what the Old Testament was written in, is shalom. It means peace, but back then it was this beautiful and complex word loaded with ancient understandings. It could have been used as a greeting. I thought we'd try it once. We're just going to say shalom. Nice. Feels good, right? Well, how about one more time? Shalom. All right, I like it. It's fun to say. It was used to imply like the absence of war, conflict, or described restfulness. I like to think of shalom like this. Like it's just like, feels good, right? Calm and restful, peaceful. Makes me think of naps, right? Feels good. And shalom is some of that, but it's also more than that. Shalom means completeness and wholeness. It's when nothing is missing. For example, in the Old Testament, they use it when in Job. It says in Job 5:24, "You shall know that your tent is at peace, shalom, and you shall inspect your fold and miss nothing, wholeness." Shalom is when things are complete and secure. Now, with that understanding, if we think back to how we started this morning, asking, what do you want? Maybe we are without peace in our happiness, our financial situations, our schedule, our relationships, because they're broken or incomplete. Like we're seeking our happiness from the wrong things, things that don't bring full joy. We are financially not at rest because we want more than we need or are not using what we have as wisely or as fully as we should. Or we are not at peace in our schedule because frankly, we're doing too much. And they're all maybe good things, but that too much is just too much. Or we are not at peace in our relationships because they are fractured and haven't followed the process of reconciliation and forgiveness as God has shown us and prompted us to do and wants us to do. We can feel something is missing or broken between what we desire and what we are experiencing. There's a lack of wholeness and maybe even brokenness. Have you been there? I have, and I still do at times for a lot of these. These feelings, they weren't unfamiliar for the God followers before Jesus. Like there was a lack of shalom in a lot of the same things we experience, but more primarily for them, it was in their relationship with God and others. I want to take you through a little bit more on the word shalom and how it evolved over the years. To start, shalom was what people were hoping to come one day, which is week one of Advent. Week one of Advent is hope. We kind of skipped over this one because we had some other things to do last week, but hope is important. That there is something greater, hope for that. And many times that hope is for peace. They had sincere hope back then for peace to come because it was a prophecy or a prediction to God's people hundreds of years before the first Christmas. Here are some of the predictions. In Isaiah 9:6 it said, For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and shalom, there will be no end, or peace, there will be no end. And then it says in Isaiah 53:5, but he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. These are some predictions of someone to come before the birth of Jesus, or before Christmas even happened, the first Christmas even happened. And the people know about these predictions, people like Mary. Well, hundreds of years later, this newborn arrives to earth, fulfills these prophecies, and a messenger of God announces his arrival as a newborn by saying, Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests. The wording here is not coincidence. This is the New Testament, so the word for peace is eirene, but they specifically are stating the person who arrived, Jesus, is to bring peace to whom his favor rests. And if we keep going forward, 30-some years later, Jesus says in his ministry, Peace I leave you with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. Peace, or my way of living, I leave you. And peace for eternal life, I give you, is what he's saying. Fast forward a bit more. Jesus is killed. He's died. He dies on the cross. He resurrects. He returns to his disciples alive, and he says, on that evening of the first day of the week, when his disciples were together, when the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, Peace be with you. After he said this, he showed them his hands and side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Again, Jesus said, Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. Now, I don't have a Catholic background, but this is a pretty typical saying, right? Peace be with you. It's something so important that it kind of became a statement that you'd have a natural response to. Like if I say, peace be with you, you say, Nice. All right. And also with you, or also with your spirit, I think is a recent change to be more accurate with the Latin masses. But when you say peace be with you, and knowing all this backstory on peace, what you're actually saying is let God's rest, completeness, wholeness, and comfort be with you. Let God's shalom be with you. That's huge. Jesus tells us he brought peace. He brought wholeness to our relationships and hardships and situations, and that we can have it. That's the peace we can have, and the peace that we actually have access to. Do you have that peace? I don't know about you, but even knowing Jesus is supposed to bring peace and did bring peace, I don't experience it all the time. I mean, I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor even, and I don't experience peace fully. I'm anxiety prone as a person. I'm always in pursuit of people pleasing. I struggle with accomplishment and thinking like I'm not good enough. I'm even restless at times and thinking like, do I have worth? Am I doing enough? Am I doing enough worth? And I go without peace in my work at times. And these thoughts swirl around in my mind over and over and over again. The one thing that's maybe good about this for me is I believe it makes me average. Like an average Joe who's not able to find full peace. I mean, the stats are all over, but I think it's safe to say half of us in the room are without peace, whether you're a Christian or not. So what do we do about this? Do we just go back to my message I did a few years ago and, allow God's presence create peace within you? So just start thinking about God, actively pursue it, work hard to get it, and then actively make it, fix problems for others, right? And then every time, we'll do those steps and yeah, I feel like I'm getting some peace. And every time we get off track, just do step 1, 2, 3 again, and we're back to experiencing peace. Is that what we're supposed to do? Not so much. There's something deeper, more real that needs to happen for you and I to get wholeness in the world. Something more than just listening to a message and mustering up the ability of you doing or working towards greater peace. Experiencing peace is actually more about what Jesus has done and shown us to do than it is about what you can do or accomplish. It's more about Jesus' ultimate vision for you and your future that brings us peace than it is of what you plan and try to do to bring yourself peace. You see, Jesus can come and he can offer all of the things that give peace, even action steps, right? But if you don't actually embrace this mindset and this internal change of what he's done for you and declared over you, you won't have peace. You'll only have tactics to get peace, and you only have a hope for peace. And that's the perk that we're kind of in today, that the people of the Old Testament didn't have. We can actually have the peace Jesus came to offer. Jesus specifically says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." What Jesus is saying is, if you want rest, if you want peace, less burden or struggle mentally about relationships, finances, your schedule, family life, holidays, you are to take his yoke. And what that means is one of these. It doesn't look that appealing, right? But you are to enter a yoke. And I think what Jesus is telling us, and what this picture, I think this one is a good portrayal of it. I think it's a beautiful picture, is he wants us to enter the yoke with him in it. He will do the heavy pulling of the yoke as the cattle do. He is in it and he is leading it. But how you experience peace is you have to embrace Jesus' yoke. You have to actually hitch yourself into that yoke. Have you done that? That is the imagery, which is not that pretty, Like, to get into like a guillotine-like thing, like, all right, I'm in it with you, Jesus, right? Like, that is not pretty. That seems miserable. It seems awful. At least, like, in my use of vocabulary, I'm like, Jesus, really? Like, could there have been a different example? Like, I just need to get over that one. But another example I thought of that maybe is a little bit better, or at least in my opinion, is an ugly Christmas sweater. I'm not going to name names, but there's been a staff member, Brianna, who has this desire to have Sydney and I wear one of these, and she keeps offering it to Sydney and I to borrow. She even brought it for me today. Right? Pretty great. I don't think you will ever see Sydney and I in one of these, ever. I mean, like, I like that it gets us close. That sounds good. But typically, not with sweaters on, right? Like, no extra layers, please. But it's like a yoke, right? A double sweater. It's a yoke. And to be in it with one or with someone sounds okay, right? To be in it with someone sounds okay. But to know that someone is going to lead the yoke, do the heavy lifting, make the decisions for you, guide you, and be with you through it all, that sounds amazing. That sounds great, especially if this person is the designer of the universe. To have them lead sounds peaceful. It sounds like a path to shalom or wholeness, to getting us to live the way the Creator intended us to live. As you think of that imagery, whether it's a sweater for you or whether it's a yoke for you, have you done that with Jesus? Like, that is a Christian. Have you experienced God's peace of being with Him and His yoke while here on earth? If you haven't, tell God you want that. Tell God you want to experience the peace that is brought by accepting Jesus' gift of taking your wrongs and choices that went against God and caused unrest and lack of peace between you and Him. And let His favor rest on you so you can have God be a part of your life and guide you. To do that, simply say that in your head, in your heart, like, God, I want that. I believe that. I want you to lead. And that decision, what you're doing is you're hitching yourself to His yoke. You can even say, I want to hitch myself to your yoke, God. And what you think is best for my relationships, my finances, my schedules, I want that. And then how you realistically start like doing that, like once you say I'm in it, how you actually start doing that of like letting Him lead, is you're in prayer with Him often to hear His voice. You're in His Word or His Bible, looking at His timeless direction of what we should be doing and how we make decisions about certain things. And then being around other Christians who are also trying to piece it all together, like in a life group or church on Sundays. And then when we find spots like, like that where we're not doing like it God's way, or we've been fighting His yoke, change. God forgives in these areas, which is why we can experience ultimate peace, even in our mess ups. The Christian story is we aren't able to be with a perfect God because of our choosings of so many wrongdoings. And He can't just be like, you know what, it's fine. It's fine that you keep doing that. It's fine. I'll still take you without consequence. He can't do that. Otherwise, that would lower His perfection. It would lower His standard. And then like what He ultimately says brings peace, like you're not doing. So how can He say that? The standard that truly does bring us peace, He has to uphold. So to make up for these wrongs that separate us from God, and ultimately what brought death into the world, Jesus gives His life undeservingly to be able to grant peace and freedom to make the relationship with His people whole. To have repair brokenness by bridging the gap between God and us so that we can have a relationship with Him even in our imperfection. Even though we are the ones who have done the wrong to break the relationship, He does the peacemaking for us so that we can be with Him by taking our consequences. He has given us His favor. He will make us right and lead even though we do nothing to deserve that. Again, that is a Christian, someone who wants and knows they need that. And whether you're just maybe affirming that today or feel like you've believed that and lived that for years, it is the ultimate way to peace. And that's where today's message is different than the one I did 2 years ago. To ultimately experience peace, you need to realize you need to get in the yoke and follow its leading. You need to affirm that God has already given you his favor. It's just you need to embrace it. Again, his yoke is easy and light. If it's not feeling that way, you're doing it wrong. You are maybe self-leading too much. You're putting too much pressure on yourself. You're expecting it's all up to you. If you're doing that, you're probably without peace. But you can't muster peace. You can't just muster up the ability for peace. It's something you have to submit to, and then you will start to feel the peace. And I feel like that's where Mary was at, right? She was afraid. She has her plans. She has her own plans, and I'm sure there was at least a moment of, wait, this is not what I had planned at all. I do not want to go through that. This is not the direction I was intending. It's not what I thought would bring peace. It's not my plan, God. But she then quickly realizes her peace must come from God. So she affirms, I am the Lord's servant. Let everything you've said happen to me. And that is the mindset and thought we need to change to experience peace as a Christian today. It's the peace that the Old Testament people didn't know would come from Jesus, but for you can know that peace you are desiring. It comes from Jesus. It comes from hitching to his yoke. So today, if you're not living with peace, ask yourself, who's leading in the yoke? How do you make decisions? Him or you? Are you stressing about things that God wouldn't stress about? It's probably causing friction in the yoke. Are you finding yourself walking with resistance to things that aren't of God? That's maybe why. Do you have peace? For an average Joe, to realistically have peace, it's continually reminding yourself that it's from him, not from what you can do. Realigning yourself to God's desires, reminding yourself to hitch yourself to God's yoke. Remind yourself that life, it's not about money. It's not about a marriage that's like the movies or picture perfect. It's not one that's about a race to see who can just have the most maximized schedule. It's about the traits Jesus did, which I don't know if you know, how Jesus lived his life is he served others, he ate dinner with people, drank wine, talked with people, was in solitude with God a lot. That was his yoke of living. Are you trying to do more of those things in your context or more of the things you want to do? Now you might feel God, Aaron, I feel like I'm in his yoke. I feel like I'm kind of there, but I still feel like I'm experiencing peaceless moments. In John 16:33, Jesus acknowledges that this will always be the case for us, but he tries to explain to his disciples he is bigger. He says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. He knows even in his yoke, in this world, we're still going to have moments of trouble, which I don't know about you. I feel it. My inner being tells me this is true. I feel something is missing at times. We are not in complete shalom or eirene or peace, even when I feel I'm doing it Jesus' way. Which brings us to the future of Advent, the future part of it, where we can have peace. Our longing for Jesus to return, to bring peace to the nations, to bring peace to those who are hurting, peace to the world, peace to our families. Again, Revelation talks about a future time where there's a new heaven, a new earth. For the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared, where there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. A time where not just you and me are in peace, but where the world is in complete peace and we're living in it again. So you can experience peace in trials today because you know there isn't, or that isn't the end. That there is a future full of peace for you through God. And sometimes you need to just maybe embrace that. Long-term peace comes not from you and your actions, but from Jesus and his actions. And remember and reflection on that in this Advent and lifetime is what will bring you ultimately peace. For my last few moments, though, today, I want to get back to the average Joe part of this series, or the average errand, per se. People like you and me who still want more peace now and want maybe something practical. If we go back to my message 2 years ago, this is where it's extremely handy to have these points, because as we allow God's presence in his yoke create and bring peace within you, actively pursuing peace and then actively trying to make peace, they are prompting this component, I think, that Christians often miss. Like, I feel like we approach God like this sometimes. We're like a person who, like, I'm in God's yoke, I'm sitting there, I'm in it, and then we just get smacked, right? Like, you're in it. You're there, you're in the yoke, but you're not doing anything, you're just in it. It's okay to laugh at this. It's silly. It's meant to be silly. You guys are like serious today. Like, we know peace comes from God's ways, but you still have to pay attention, right? You still have to move. You still have to do the work. Or in other words, you still have to like move your head to the side or catch the ball. Like, we experience God's peace, but even with his leading, even in his yoke, you still have to be the one who ultimately moves or makes the decision towards the peace of Jesus' yoke here on earth. For you, what that maybe looks like is like that could be the hard relationship talk about not being what you want it to be and knowing that you need to work on it and stating that. Like, not just like, yeah, I know God told me we probably should do that, but it's like actually saying that, doing that. That could be the hard family talk you need to have, that the talk that where you say, like, we need to set up some boundaries and we got to figure out what this looks like. It could be like stopping financially spending that is unnecessary, like removing Amazon from your phone, right? Like, that's the step, that's the action. The removal of maybe like seeking happiness from things that don't last, like quit doing them, don't keep going to them. Like, that's the moving, that's the step. It could be the addition of adding some of Jesus' habits in your life that you don't do. That is a step in his yoke. Solitude with God, lessen your schedule, serving, spending time with others. Like, God will get you the glove or get you ready in the spot so that the ball's coming, you're seeing it. He'll put you in the game even, get you in the right seat to be ready to do the things. But you still have to move your head. You still have to make the action. You need to actually pursue peace. And then when you start feeling it, you are to be someone who makes peace for others. Christians are called to be peacemakers, not peacekeepers. Blessed are those who make peace, Scripture says. They will be called God's children. So you need to go and create peace for others. For you, that could be like starting to share your faith of like how it's changed you. That could be like helping people find the ways of God and healing and the peace that comes with that. That could be you being proactive, the proactive one in the relationship that's maybe like not great, but being the person who models the character traits of God by going to them even when they don't deserve it. That's what Jesus did to create peace for us. But you are to actively pursue it personally, and you are to actively make the peace. You are to rely on God, but you got to do the work. You have to move. You have to put your hand up or move your head or catch the ball, whatever it is. God brings peace. He gives you the mindset of peace. He promises eternity of peace. But the peace in our world today is hitching to his yoke and moving with him. Are you doing that? As we wrap up today, this Christmas, I hope we can embrace the peace that truly comes from Jesus at his birth and the peace that comes from the promise we have for the future with him. But I hope we can be like Mary. And like when God tells us like what he wants, we can get in his yoke and start making peace and say, I am the Lord's servant. Let everything you've said happen to me. And you want to know what's so special about Mary? Is we see she did move. She moved with it. She got the news. She knew what she had to do. She did it. her friend affirms it in her. You are blessed because you believe that the Lord would do what he said. You're blessed. You believed it. You did it. That's my prayer for us today. To be at peace with God, with what he said, but then experience his blessings of our decisions to actually do it and move for it.